Hello and welcome to Church Chat with Monsignor Frank Chiodo.
Hi, Father Guthrie.
We are broadcasting today from the Adoration Chapel, as you can see. It's busy days here at St. Anthony's, surprisingly, so the church is otherwise occupied at the moment.
So this is called Church Chat in the Chapel. So welcome welcome to Church Chat in the Chapel. And we're glad you're here, and we'll be talking today a little bit about an answer to a question that was posed recently. What was that question?
That question was, one of our viewers observed that the city of Des Moines the name Des Moines means of the monks.
Yes, the name Des Moines are two French words, Des Moines, which means the monks. Mm-hmm. And so it's the city of the monks, and the reason goes back, I think, to the 1600s. When French trappers were up near Dubuque, and they were, of course, Catholic, and they coined a river up there, the River of the Monks, mm-hmm. which is the Des Moines River. And they named it that because of the presence of the Trappists at some time in history, and also there were Dominicans up there. Mm-hmm. That's one theory. Another theory is that there was an Indian word called Moingona, and the French could not pronounce Moingona, and so they pronounced it Des Moines. Mm-hmm. And either one of them, well, whichever, but it's very interesting, the theory about the monks, because it highlights the Catholic origins of the state of Iowa, which go back to the French trappers in the late 1600s when they were exploring. Mainly traveling the river routes. That's right, the Mississippi, particularly in Joliet, Marquette, Julian Dubuque was a French trapper. Mm-hmm. There was Father Mazzucchelli, who was a Dominican up there, and the Trappists. I'm not sure when the Trappists actually came. Do you know? They came while Loris was still the first bishop of Dubuque. So that would have been the 1830s. Okay, 1830s. The second bishop of Dubuque was one of the Trappists. That's right. He was the abbot, I think. He was the abbot. So the history of the city of Des Moines, the name Des Moines was given to the city because the river Des Moines mm-hmm. came through the city, it came through this area, and so they named this area after the river Des Moines. There was a trading post here, and they almost named the trading post Fort Raccoon, which obviously would have changed the destiny of the city. Yeah, it could have been called Raccoon City. And I'm glad they didn't call it Raccoon City. Indeed. Raccoon, Iowa, thank God. So Des Moines has a beautiful sound to it. A lot of people mispronounce it, called Des Moines. Des Moines, it's called Des Moines, actually in French, Des Moines. And so we're very proud of that. And interestingly, the city of Des Moines, the city of the monks, has a rich history of monks, and we're going to go into that in a moment as we trace a little bit of the history of the church in the city of Des Moines. There's a whole Catholic history of the state of Iowa, which makes it somewhat unique among the Midwestern states on this side of the Mississippi, except for maybe like Missouri or Louisiana that also have strong Catholic ties. What were some of the religious orders that passed through? You mentioned we had the Trappists. The Jesuits came through as missionaries. They were chaplains to the missionaries, actually chaplains themselves. Marquette, I believe, or was it Joliet? I think it was Marquette. No, Joliet. Joliet was the priest. He was a Jesuit missionary who came with the trapper and explorer Marquette. And Joliet, Illinois is named after him, and Marquette, Illinois is named after the explorer. And so there were Jesuits, certainly, who were traveling along the Mississippi. And then the Trappists, as you said, came, but also Father Mazzucchelli and the Dominicans were up in the Dubuque area. Many of the churches in northeast Iowa, on the Illinois side, as well, Wisconsin side, as well as here in Iowa, were founded by Father Mazzucchelli. I think it was Samuel Mazzucchelli, mm-hmm. who was a Dominican friar. So we've had a rich history of religious orders, and as you mentioned, the Trappists came in the 1800s during mm-hmm. the bishop, the tenure
of Bishop Matthias Loris, who came from France. He was a missionary, as it were, from France to the French missionaries here in northeast Iowa, and was the first bishop of the Diocese of Dubuque. Dubuque was named after the French trapper Julian Dubuque, who was a strong Catholic as well. And when you go up to Dubuque, you really see and experience the richness of Catholicism, which is a rich tradition and a deep and strong foundation for the existence of the whole Dubuque area. It's heavily Catholic, or at least it was heavily Catholic, and still influenced highly by the Catholic Church. And then from Dubuque, eventually the Dubuque Diocese was so large they cut it off and made just two. Dubuque was the northern tiers of the counties of the state, and gave the southern tiers to a new diocese called Davenport. And so Des Moines, the city of Des Moines, was part of the Dubuque Diocese originally. I mean, what was Des Moines, what was to become Des Moines. And then I think it really started blossoming during the time it was under Davenport.
Right.
And so Davenport was the diocesan see where the bishop was for many years. And then in 1912, the Des Moines Diocese was cut off and made its own diocese after Sioux City was also cut off of Dubuque at some point in that history. And so Des Moines was founded in 1912 as a diocese. And at the time, the city of Des Moines just had 3 parishes, and now there are 20 or 25 of them in the general area. The 3 parishes, the first parish, of course, was the cathedral first or Visitation? Visitation was first. Visitation, Our Lady of the Americas, was the first church founded, and its first structure was built on what is now the Capitol grounds by the sailors and marine monument there on the Capitol grounds.
The giant pillar is old enough that there are pictures of old Visitation next to that.
I didn't know that. I guess I knew that, but I'd forgotten. We need to go and look at those.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten that. So Visitation was there, the first one, and then the cathedral was founded in 1879, was it?
82 maybe?
82, okay.
Somewhere around there.
The cathedral was founded, St. Ambrose, and then it was founded as a parish, of course, and in 1912 it became the cathedral church. In 1906, this parish was founded, so this is the third parish, the third oldest parish in the city of Des Moines. And then the fourth is St. John's, which is now the Basilica. And so St. Anthony's, of course, as we went through a week or two ago, has a rich tradition that goes all the way back to 1906, actually. So the city of Des Moines was founded as a diocese in 1912, but of course the diocese covered not just the city all the way to the Missouri River on the west, and on the east, just east of Des Moines, on this side of Colfax. And so the church began to grow very, very quickly, particularly in the city and in the smaller towns, where there were ethnic communities such as the Irish and Irish settlement, the Germans in Shelby County, the Italians down here on the south side. The church, as I said, began to grow and flourish. And in the I think it was the 20s, or the 30s, I'm not sure which, the Passionist Fathers came.
Oh, really?
The Passionists were the group of religious men, a monastic community, semi-monastic community, was founded by St. Paul of the Cross, and they came and founded a monastery here in the city of Des Moines. And
where was that located?
It was located in what is now on the site of Merle Hay Mall. That was a beautiful site outside, the main body of the city at that time. And they built a monastery. They also founded a seminary for their novices and their young brothers who were studying for the priesthood. And so it grew very quickly and was one of the key Passionist monasteries in the United States for many years.
Oh, wow.
I remember as a child they used to talk about the monks coming to help, with masses. They closed the monastery officially, I believe, in 1972. But before that, they closed the monastery there at Merle Hay Mall in the late 50s, and they sold it to Merle Hay Mall. And they moved to most of the monks to St. Louis, and then they left just a handful at a small monastery somewhere here in Des Moines, I think on 56th.
How did the Passionists influence the parishes in the area?
They would give parish missions. They were renowned for their preaching, on the cross, and so the crucified Savior was the focus. And so they come in at the beginning of their parish mission carrying a huge cross, several feet high, and they mount it on a stage, and they would use that as the central focus for their reflections during their parish retreat or parish mission, as it was called in those days. They were a tremendous influence. I remember as a child, they're coming for the missions and also helping with masses and so forth. And when they left finally in the 70s, it was a great blow to the history of our city and our diocese and the Catholic community.
You told me that their monastery was one of the major ones.
It was one of the major ones in this United States, actually, in this province anyway, Western province. And they were a wonderful influence, a wonderful group of men, truly committed. In fact, I was always enamored of them. They used to have a heart on their habit, plastic image of the heart of Jesus, and they would wear that, and it had on there Jesus Christ crucified, and they would have a cross on top, and that was their emblem, and then a leather belt with rosary beads. Mm-hmm. And they often wear sandals. So the Passionists dominated the city monastically and religiously for many years, and so was the city of the monks, the city of the Passionist monks. And then in the latter 70s, early 80s, Bishop Dingman invited the Jesuits to come to Des Moines, and they founded what was called, and what is still called, Emmaus House, Emmaus Retreat House, our center of spirituality. So there were a handful of Jesuits who came, and so they provided the presence and the influence of a religious community. Once again, although they're not monks, they're religious, and so they also gave credence to the name of the city of the monks. And they stayed for many years, and I think by the year 2000, I think they had pretty much left. And the Emmaus House is run now by a
diocesan priest.
Diocesan priest, basically. And so then, in 1990, a new religious order, a new religious community was founded in the city of Des Moines under Bishop William Bullock. And this community was called the Society of St. John, the Brothers of St. Benedict. It was a community founded at St. John's Parish, and at that time it was a basilica, had been named a basilica shortly there before the founding of the monastery in August of 1990. The community consisted of 6 men at the beginning who were committed to establishing a religious community under the auspices of the Diocese of Des Moines. So it was officially a diocesan community of religious men living according to the rule of St. Benedict. So they lived a monastic rule there at St. John's. And they would chant the office there at the Basilica and provide retreats and missions, spiritual direction, and a basic presence of a monastic community living according to the rule of St. Benedict in the city, which has a grand tradition, particularly in England, where monasteries were not simply out in the country, they also were in cities and founded in part of usually a cathedral or a large church. In this case, it was a basilica. And so it lasted. It was about 6 to 9 men. It kind of fluctuated. And then in the year 2000, the community became affiliated to the Benedictine community, the Worldwide Benedictine Confederation. And so it became officially a Benedictine monastery or Benedictine priory. And it lasted to 2007, when the numbers began to dwindle, and there was only 1 or 2 monks left. And they were sent to Omaha to Mount Michael Abbey, and the monastery was closed, which was unfortunate. Another chapter of monastic life in the city of Des Moines closing. I had a great fondness for that community because I founded it under Bishop William Bullock in the year 2000. There were so many blessings given to me and to the community and to the church at large through that monastic community. So that gives us some evidence in history to justify the name Des Moines, the city of the monks.
Thank you for joining us for Church Chat today, and please know of our continued prayers for you and our desire to see you, of course, return to Sunday Mass when everything is safe and healthy enough for you to do so.
Bye now, and God love you.